Welcome to Scott's Boring Life. I'm Scott. This is my podcast. Welcome to it. It's Wednesday, February 24th, 2021. This is a special podcast because I have a guest. Her name is Christy Vandenberg. Christy's a friend of mine of well over 20 years. We were roommates. I was about 23 years old. She was about 20 in Montreal. She's lived a really interesting life and continues to do so, and has become a really fantastic songwriter and performer and singer and guitar player. So she's in the process of writing her debut album. Her artist name is Gray the Deer. So we're going to talk to Christy right now. I really enjoyed this conversation. It's actually the second time that I had Christy on the podcast. The first time she was over for a visit. We just kind of pressed record. It was unstructured, dragged on a bit, and I really wanted a do-over. So this is the do-over with Christy, a little more structured and formulated, and it went great. I wish I could have had more time with her. Maybe we'll do it again. The first song we've actually heard before, but we're going to play it again. And she talks about it a little bit, called Gambling Man. We recorded it here. I put an electric guitar in her hand for that one. I think she would more typically play it on an acoustic guitar. But I thought it turned out really cool. The second song that we're going to hear is one that she recorded herself at home, with this gorgeous, lush reverb, and you could hear her move on her chair. It's just obviously a live take, and it's really stunning. And it's called Caving In. So this is my conversation with Christy Vandenberg, Gray the Deer, and we're going to hear the two songs called Gambling Man and Caving In. We go through the story of her life a little bit, how she's rode freight trains and how she ended up in a cabin in the BC mountains that doesn't have electricity, recording her debut album. Really great talk. Let's do it. Because I only know you as a songwriter very recently, even though I've known you for over 20 years. Always known you as an artist, but as a songwriter only recently. So maybe throughout this little journey, we're going to figure out how that came to be, and how you, and as an artist, how it started and how it developed. So in 1984, you're born in April. Footloose by Kenny Loggins is number one. Karate Kid, Gremlins, Splash are the big movies. Where are you born? Where does it all start? Where are your parents still in the same house that you were born in? Where it all started?
Well, they're kind of in the same house. They're on the same property, but they have rebuilt the old farmhouse since, in the last 8 years, I think. Yeah, they tore down the old house. That's in technically it's in Apple Hill, Ontario. Debatable. We have an Apple Hill address, a Martintown phone number. It's like right smack dab in the middle of the two towns on Rishi Road. My dad's a farmer. He took possession of the farm on May 1st, so several hours after I was born. That was the big thing. So my mom was in the hospital. He was taking possession of the farm.
Wow. Are you the oldest?
I am the oldest of 5. Yeah.
Wow.
And the black sheep and the rebellious one, Yeah,
it doesn't usually work that way. Usually the rebellious one's like the middle child or the youngest one. But that's a relative term. Now, moving forward 10 years, it's 1994. And just to give perspective, Bill Clinton's the president. There's that whole fiasco, Tanya Harding. You're at home watching VHS tapes like Dumb and Dumber, The Lion King. You get home from school, you're watching American Funniest Videos. You're 10 years old. Grunge is happening, so you're a bit young for that, but it's there. So we have already established that you're still in the house that you were originally were born into. Your dad has the farm for 10 years at that point, and you have some younger siblings, I'm sure. What's happening? 10 years old, 1994. What do you remember from that time?
Well, I think that was grade 3-ish, which would have been when my best friend moved away. So I feel like there's like quite a strong memory of grade 3 in my brain, because that was kind of a big deal for me. And you were talking about grunge, and I remember whenever she had her big garage sale before she moved, because she moved out west. And I remember, aside from the hot crimper iron to crimp your hair, I remember her older sister selling her Nirvana CD. And so grunge was on the peripheral. I remember the CD, but it was, I wasn't listening to grunge. I was listening to like Disney's greatest hits. But
because
it was
10
there.
Years old. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And it was kind of, yeah, my mom wasn't into grunge. Grunge was bad. Yeah. Ripped jeans were bad. Safety pins were bad.
Yeah, when I was younger, my parents would throw out my my tapes, so I knew better to make copies. And it's like, whether even like Alice in Chains, like it was the devil's music or something, I don't know. So I'd make copies. So I'd be like that. And I'd do a little show. They'd throw them out. I'd be like, I'm like, I already made a copy. Although it would have been nice to have the original. But forbidding music is probably the worst thing a parent can do, because obviously they planted a seed. And how does that develop? Let's move 10 years forward. And actually 11 years forward, and you're 16 years old. And it's year 2000. President Bush is president. Reality shows are starting. Survivor, Big Brother, movies that are number one are Castaway, Scary Movie. Music that's popular is Blink-182, Coldplay. So that's what's happening. Jean Chrétien is president. You're 16 years old. You're in high school. What do you remember from that general time? Especially creatively, because probably... Mm-hmm.
I definitely remember listening to Blink-182 to, at this point, my embarrassment. You thought it was so good at the time, and now you listen to it and you're like, what the hell? Like, this is so bad. But I think there was an energy to that kind of music that was so new at the time, that was attractive to a teenager. And I think maybe the fact that it was bad, the fact that parents were like, this is garbage, you're like, yeah, sweet. You don't get it, just like you don't get me. But also, I think at 16, huge No Doubt fan. That started kind of when I was 12. Like, one of the first like types of music was, No Doubt was a big one. Still listening to it when I was 16, but also moving more into Tool, Alice in Chains, and that like Deftones, really moving into like darker, more heavier music. For sure, that's when I think I stopped wearing anything with a little bit of color in it and started wearing mostly all black. And I think Bush being becoming president is also when I started to care about politics, or that kind of coming into play. Because I think even in punk music, people, like, because he was so bad, it was bringing all these like political issues to the surface. And I think that's when I started to think about politics and things and the world being unjust. And
yeah, even though we might have been a bit young to understand the details of like the political systems, we still had the sense that we were being duped, that it's really obvious that they have the energy of a used car salesman and they're not being honest. Um, and that's kind of the birth of punk rock, just like what you said earlier. Like, you don't understand this music and you don't understand me. Um, yeah. So you kind of, that's when that punk rock spirit, I guess, kind of started. What about in terms of
Hmm.
creation? Were you painting? Or is it poetry? I don't think you were singing with a guitar in your hand yet, but
No,
so you're more
definitely
being
writing.
right. You're writing.
Sorry. Go. You say what you're gonna say.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we're talking over each other as much as it might seem. There's a bit of a lag, but I think we're doing a pretty good job with it. But let's move forward from that, because that's your punk rock spirit kind of developed then. You're writing. You're not making music yet, but it's definitely affecting you. Let's move to years 2004. In 2004, you're 20 years old. Bush is the president still. Movies are Shrek 2, Troy, The Aviator. Music that's number one is the band Snow Patrol, Velvet Revolver. The Mars rover landing happened, which is super cool and very relevant, because just yesterday, the next was whenever the Perseverance, the next landing was. The CIA admitted that there was no weapons of mass destruction. Funny enough, you were saying that when you're 16 years old, you had the sense of Bush being not feeling distrusting. Well, moving over to 2004, where we're talking now, we find out that it obviously was, and they admitted to that. Lance Armstrong won his 6th Tour de France. We find out later what was happening there. Here's an interesting one. In 2004, you're 20 years old. Facebook is just launched exclusively at Harvard on a small scale. So roughly around that time, because it's hard to pinpoint sometimes whenever you're remembering, but during that time in history, what do you remember? Where are you? What's going on?
So at that time, so I was living in Montreal. I think were we living together? Maybe not quite yet.
Well, I know, as I was thinking of this, I thought so too, but I think it might have been right around then.
Or a bit later. I think we lived
I think it
because
might
I
have been a
was
year later. Yeah. But
second
that's
year.
okay, because that's right around this. That's right around the same era. So let's just bump it up a year to whenever we lived together. So,
Well,
because
okay,
that's a little bit
yeah.
more precise. So you're 21.
It doesn't. 21 was it? 21? Yeah, because
It's
I
something like
was
that.
in
Well,
Montreal.
how about this? Did you go directly to Montreal after high school? No.
Yes, so I went
You did.
directly from Montreal after high school. I wanted to leave the farm and get into the big city, because I felt someone would understand me there. There was going to be. I was a big into drama in high school. Like, aside from, like, I really loved to write. I was kind of sad, even though maybe it didn't appear like that on the outside. I think there was a lot of that teen angsty sadness on the inside. And so writing was a big thing. And then drama. And I think when I looked into what I wanted to do after high school, kind of moving into more like film sort of, I didn't really know, but I wanted to do something creative, but I didn't really feel like I wanted to do a fine arts degree. I think there was, coming from a farm and like a blue collar background, thought that going into something like media arts was more realistic, which now looking back, it was kind of a silly
What university
thing.
did you go into?
I went to
Or college?
Concordia University. So I did communication
Oh,
studies, which was like media arts at Concordia University. I got really into video art and film and expressing myself creatively in that way. I was doing a minor in women in fine arts, which was women's studies and fine arts stuff kind of combined. But a lot of film and video art. I think at one point I thought I was going to move to Berlin and become a video artist, an experimental video artist, and that was going to be my life. But then, yeah, and then I went tree planting, and that changed my life. And
where did you go tree planting?
So my first year I went tree planting with Amy, and we went to Northern Ontario.
Right.
Yeah.
And that changed your life. Okay, why?
Because I think it associated me with the wild and the wilderness in a different way. Like, because I think growing up on the farm, you're growing up rurally and in the country, and you are connected to the land in this way that might not be so obvious. But when you're in the bush, working in the bush, like, I remember there was days gone by and I was like, this is the longest I have never looked in the mirror ever in my life. Like, you're not bathing, you're not you're sleeping in a tent, you're getting up and working all day. And I remember getting into town being like, I haven't looked in the mirror in days. So, and then you're just like in it, you're in the elements, you're in the cold, you're in the rain, there's bugs. So it just like, and I felt really at home in that environment. So I think from that, it sort of just started to like, that planted another seed and kind of like moved the gears in a different direction.
Well said. I could see how that would do that. Did you do that during university, like in the summers or something?
Yes. So I did my second year. So my first year after university, I went back to Cornwall, or like back to Ontario, Glengarry, Cornwall area. Then second year university, I stayed in Montreal and was in Montreal for the summer. And then that was the only summer I ever spent in Montreal. And then after that, I started tree planting. And so every summer when I wasn't in university, I would go tree planting.
I have a really great memories of living with you and Amy. You mentioned, Amy, that you went tree planting with her. And we had this apartment. And like, I don't think at the time I appreciated just how like special that stage of your life is, how cool it was, which is kind of, I could be guilty of that throughout my entire life, even to this day, but like not recognize like, hey man, this is cool. Like we had this really cool apartment in Montreal. There's this courtyard in the middle, and where we had a lot of neat neighbors. We're in the kind of the best part of the city. And I was working, you girls were going to school. And yeah, I should have embraced it more. I mean, I did. I had a good time, but I should have like embraced it more, because it was really, looking back, like, wow, you only get that kind of chapter of your life once.
Because you were nuts. Oh my gosh.
Well, you were. Well, you embraced it. Like you embraced it 110%. And like the biggest bands in Montreal, you were there. You found them, and you were their friends, and you'd bring them back to the house and the apartment, and like we'd have like wild parties, and the energy of the place was through the roof. And it was sure as fuck wasn't because of me. It was because of you. And that kind of brings me, because now you're an artist at this stage. You're 100% an artist, and you are creating all kinds of things. So like, for example, you had like a sound class, and you were literally throwing yourself on the floor and on the couch and the kitchen table, smashing dishes to get like sounds, and you're so aggressive. Whenever you decided we needed a painting hanging on the wall, you got naked and like put paint all over your body, and just bashed yourself against the canvas like wildly. I wasn't that present for like the painting, but the painting was awesome. Do you still have that painting?
No, my mom
You know
threw
where it
it
is?
out.
No.
I had it stored in shed. I had it stored in the shed, and I think my
She didn't
mom,
know.
they just got, I don't know, they threw it out.
She didn't know. They didn't know.
I think they
So
didn't
anyway,
realize what it was.
they didn't realize, oh, what I wouldn't do for that. Oh, that's anyway, moving forward. So my point is that you approached creative things with less like force, not brash force, but like you committed 100%. You're like, I'm fucking doing this. And what this is all about is you as a musician now. Do you approach music like with that force? Because I don't hear that. It sounds very tender and vulnerable. So that's the question. Is there that force that you had back then? Is that how you approach music now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't think I've ever considered myself as someone that like approached things with such force, but I do remember that freedom that maybe I had with creativity and less apprehension and maybe less fear. Less fear probably of what other people would think. Um, when you're young, you're learning, and there's that space where it's okay to be learning. That I think as time progresses, you feel like you should be somewhere, and then it creates these barriers.
Whenever
So
I
I
hear
do think,
you, sorry, you were
yeah,
saying you do think.
I think things have changed for me creatively in a lot of ways, especially with my,
Mhm.
yeah, the way you described it, bravery maybe. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, there is a vulnerability. I feel like music is an outlet for vulnerability, or like the way the songs and like the lyrics and like the stuff that comes out is like an outlet for vulnerability. And so maybe that is why it sounds the way it
Well,
does.
in
Yeah.
2004-ish, when you were 20-ish, and we're talking in those kind of stories I mentioned, you were a girl, whatever, a young adult, if you will. Um, where now, when I hear your music, and I haven't heard a lot of it, but what I have heard is very much of it seems very like a woman uh, that's lived and loved and lost and has successes and um, yeah, an adult, and so it has more a little less tread on the tire, which is an expression which is great for an artist. So let's talk a little bit right now about your music. Um, yeah, like tell me about the is it called the Gambler Man? I don't know the
The
title of
Gambling
it.
Man.
Yeah, Gambling Man.
Yeah.
That's the first song I've ever heard you play, and you did it right here, actually, in the studio. And I was like, "Holy Lord, this is amazing!" So, how did you come up with that? Where did it come from? What's up with that song?
Yeah. I like it. I feel like I was like, yeah, I'm a woman that's been through the ringer. No, just,
You lived a very
but,
interesting life. You've had a real adventure. Yeah.
um, but I think, okay, my whole dad's side of his family, they're really into playing poker. They love playing poker. Poker is a big part of family. We play a huge poker tournament every Christmas with all the cousins and the uncles. And I'm always captivated by poker terms or like slang. And I find it so poetic because I really love metaphors. I'm like a metaphorical thinker, and I find poker terms are really poetic. And so and I was going through a hard time and just thinking about love. Love is such a gamble, and your heart is such a gamble. And just thinking about the way people act with love and their heart and their emotions and comparing it to a poker game and this idea of, are you going to lose out to fear, or are you going to like lose out by going all in? And then there is that romantic gambler trope, right? Of the lonesome cowboy gambler, and that like person that is going to live on the edge, which I think I was, you know, having that sort of that romanticism in my head at the time too. And like, yeah, it just came out. That song just came out. I remember I was sitting outside in front of like this like camper trailer I got, and it just came, and I actually got tendonitis in my wrist from playing that song too much. Because I did approach it with ferocity. I like was playing it really hard alone in the forest, and my wrist got messed up. Yeah.
You gotta have faith to be a gambling man. Love's like the risky game of shaking in hands. You bet with your money like you bet with your heart. You don't count the odds, then you wind up in the dark. You don't count the odds, then you wind up in the dark. But some will bluff and some will fold and some will beat you down. Some will cheat you, burn and turn to keep that luck around. You count your chips and believe that there is a winning hand. That's what will keep you a gambling man. That's what will keep you a gambling man. And some folks will fold just to stay in the game. They all wind up blind and losing just the same. Watching all they tried to save slowly disappear. You don't risk it all, then you lose out to the fear. You don't risk it all, then you lose out to the fear. You've been doubting your dealer that's been dishing out your cards. Been running so long and you ain't getting very far. You throw your hands up and say that's it, I'm done. And then your cards get dealt, but another man has won. Cards get dealt, but another man has won. Some folks will hold with an ace in their hands, bet all they got and hold out till the end, waiting on the river to know if it's meant to be. They'd rather drown, lose and go all in just to see. Rather drown, lose and go all in just to see. But some will bluff and some will fold and some will beat you down. Some will cheat you, burn and turn and keep that luck around. You count your chips and believe that there is a winning hand. That's what will keep you a gambling man. That's what will keep you a gambling man. Gotta have faith to be a gambling man. Love's like the risky game of shaking in your hands. You bet with your money like you bet with your heart. You don't count the odds, then you wind up in the dark. You don't count the odds, then you wind up in the dark.
You're 26 years old. Justin Timberlake, Jimmy Fallon are being silly fucks, joking around on TV. Everybody loved them. Lost is in its last season. Everybody's talking about it. Mad Men is very popular. Twilight, the movie's popular. Barack Obama is the president. Stephen Harper is the prime minister. 2010, you're 26 years old. Arcade Fire is really big. Indie rock is really full stride. And the Winter Olympics are happening in Vancouver. You're 26. It's 2010. What's happening? What do you remember from that time?
So that's when I think things had totally taken a big shift. I think even like, am I allowed to like go forward like a couple years?
Yep.
Because after tree planting in Ontario, I started tree planting out west. And then I think it was my first year at West. My first year at West, that's on my way home. I bought a guitar. And that's when I first started playing guitar. I had gotten a dog and gotten a guitar. I had started hopping freight trains. So I'd gone out west and I met a few people and sort of got this window into this completely different lifestyle, this kind of like hobo, free lifestyle that I'd always kind of been attracted to. And so I think that summer I started hopping freight trains, hitchhiked for the first time. Is that when I got a dog? Maybe it was my set. Yeah. I just like, there's a lot of things happening. Shaved my head, got a dog, got a guitar, started playing. I got a book on like 3 chords and started playing like some really simple, old timey country folk songs. Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit. You left Montreal hitchhiking and riding freight trains. Now, riding freight trains is not everybody does that. I don't know. I want to hear something from that era. I mean, something I remember a story from you because you did that for a little bit and you have a lot of wild stories from that. And we could do a whole podcast of just that. Was that a year of your life? 2 years? Like how long would you say roughly that was that chapter of your life?
I'd only do it in the summer and I'd probably say 3 years. There's probably three summers. 3-ish years of that kind of happening. It wasn't like all the time, but that it would happen. Sure. And then several years after that, though, I would still kind of like hitchhike around and do that. And
right. One story I remember you telling me that, correct me if I'm not remembering it right, or just take over as soon as you know what I'm talking about, but you were on your own, I believe. I think maybe it was one of your first times that you were on your own on a freight train, and you told it so beautifully, like I was right with you when you told me, and so amazing. I don't want to butcher your story, but like you have to sleep, and it's a long journey and uncomfortable, and you're in these little baskets and trying to hide from police and security. And anyway, you ended up waking up and seeing American flags. And I remember, tell me that. You ended up in the wrong country?
I was with 2 friends and we had got on, we were riding the train across the country, got in BC, and they were getting out in Winnipeg, and I contemplated getting out and like hanging out in Winnipeg for a couple of days, but I was like, no, just want to get home. I'm just going to go. And my friend's like, yeah, just stay on this train and you'll get into Toronto. Like, it's just going to Toronto. So it was a beautiful ride. I think it was sunset. The colors were amazing. You're on a train. You're like, this is gold. I'm like really living life right now. And then I curled up in my sleeping bag in the corner. It's cold. I wake up in the morning. There's American flags. And I was like, I don't know if I'm in Canada anymore.
Do you have a passport on you?
No, this was okay. This is like before you needed a passport to get into the States. So that's like how long ago? It was. I'm like totally dating
Right.
myself. And yeah, it was still scary. And like, I was like, well, maybe it was just tourist thing, but no, everything looked and felt so different. So I just stayed on the train for the whole day, like rode down for a whole day, and it was dusk. And it stopped at 2 Mile, which is when a train pulls over so another train can go by. And I got out and slept in a field and heard these banging noises and was like, oh, I'm so in the States. Like, there's people either firing guns or fireworks right now. Like, this is hilarious. And then I woke up in the morning having no idea where I was. And a van drives by and the license plates, like, I'm not joking at all, said guns. And then I walked a bit and there was a sign. I was in Amherst, Wisconsin. So I walked and there was a motel, and I walked up and was like, sorry, ma'am, I'm kind of lost. I don't really know what's going on.
No one has ever been that lost.
I was like, can I use your phone? But like, I didn't even know, like, who was I going to call? Like, what was I going to do? And this is like the real funny thing is she's like, well, if you want, we could give you some chores and you could do some work and we'll put you up for the night. So I swept their floor, I mopped, I did all these things, and it was like a real Bob Dylan story. And then I stayed in the hotel for the night, took a shower, and then he drove me to the highway the next morning, and I hitchhiked to the border and crossed the border back into Canada.
And did they give you a hard time?
They gave me a little hard time. I like made up a story. I said that I had come down with my friends and we got in an argument, and you know, I'm just trying to get back home, and I don't know, I made up some kind of story, and I don't know, he had to let me back into my own country. So yeah, it worked out. It was good.
What can you tell me about the song Gray Deer?
Oh, okay. The song's not called Gray Deer, but so that's the name I'm going for as my like artist name.
Cool. Oh, cool. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, which is kind of been a recent decision. It's been years of me trying to decide what to use as like a stage name for my music and songs. And nothing
Gray
really
Deer's
fit.
awesome.
Nothing, right? Christy Vandenberg didn't really feel right because I really I don't know, it just didn't have the twang I wanted to. Gray the Deer is so when I was looking through old family history stuff, there's a just a recording of family like coming to Canada, and my grandma, so like whoever the person that settled from Scotland in Canada, on my grandma's side, his name was Donald McDonald, I think, but they called him Donald Gray the Deer. And that was in this like record of history. So when he came over here and was initially went to the States, that was a name that they had given him. And it doesn't explain why. And that would be really interesting. I was like, why did they call him Gray the Deer? Like, but I really liked it. I thought that was cool. And I thought there must be a story to it. But I was like, I want to use that.
I'll stick with it. That's so cool. Gray the Deer or Gray Deer. But Gray the Deer, I love it. Cool. So what song am I excuse me, because I'm going off of, because I don't have an album to go off of. I have like the song you did here, and then the song you posted on Facebook recently, and I saw Gray the Deer, and I thought that was the name of the song, but now I know that that's the name of you as an artist. What's the name of the song that I'm thinking?
So the name of the song is Caving In. At least I think that's what it's called for now.
I loved it. Now, and I love how it's recorded because, like, yeah, speaking of vulnerability and just honesty, and it really captures what you do. You're somebody that would be ashamed to overproduce. So, but let's play that song, assuming that you could send it to. Do you have an MP3 of it?
Yeah, I do. I just
Okay,
made
cool.
one and I will send it to you.
Okay, cool. So yeah, but I mean, is it too personal? Can you tell me what that song is about? The sound.
Yeah.
This song is not about nothing. You could. I mean, you could just feel that it, it's personal by the energy of
Yeah.
this.
And
Yeah.
it's like, yes, it's definitely, I feel a lot of emotions and I feel them very deeply. And I think having gone through periods that have been harder and tough, and just like, yeah, having to like overcome a lot of obstacles, having to accept some things just in terms of like heart and love and relationships, and just seeing, a lot of times I'll see what's around me and that becomes a metaphor for what's going on inside of me. And having spent time like around the ocean, just when I'm thinking and processing my feelings, and a lot of times that processing does happen like with the guitar and my hands. I'm not an overly technical musician or anything. I don't even know if I'd call myself a musician. It's very much, I know some basic chords, and those chords become a tool for me to process what's happening inside of me and what I'm feeling or how I'm relating to the world, or in my world at least. And I think in thinking about like the outside world, then they become like metaphors, but also become teachers. And so just looking, so I think there's like a lot of metaphors in this song just that are sort of even just vaguely or like mysteriously alluding to what's going on inside, and thinking about the past like couple years. And even I think this summer was like kind of just like reaching a new, like being like, no, I was like overcoming a lot of things. And there was a forest fire here in the valley at the time, like a pretty huge fire that was going off on the hill. And I remember like driving past it at night and then coming home and just thinking about, all that fire is going to burn everything, but there's going to be more that comes afterwards. And just reflecting that into like my own life. And just that as nature kind of goes through these periods and nature ebbs and flows, that our lives and our inner selves can go through the same things. And even just the ocean is so great, and the like thinking about the waves in the ocean, and it's all just metaphors, and there's just so much energy there. So yeah.
Said the clouds to the sea, don't wanna be me, don't wanna be free, chasing around. Set the shore to the sea, you better find another man. I've done all I can, pushing you around. say to the dirt, let me look up your skirt. Is there something I might find? Let me change my mind and stay. And stay. And stay. But you're doing alright, said the sign to the lane. That fire on the hill and everything it kills will grow again. Don't wait too long. Set your dreams to that heart. It's alright to be smart, but don't let it stop you from caving in. From caving in.
So you were 26-year-old. It was 2010, but we're moving forward to 2015. You're 31. Adele is topping the charts with "Hello." Black Lives Matter is something everybody's talking about, rightly so. The Trump campaign is just starting, but Obama's still president. Caitlyn Jenner's in the news. Kanye West is in the news. Trudeau is prime minister. You're 31 years old. It's 2015. What does the world look like? What's happening in your world?
31. Well, I'm living here when I'm 31. At that point, I've moved to the Slocan Valley. I'm moved into a cabin in the woods.
Is this the same cabin you're talking from?
This is the same cabin I'm talking from. Yeah. I've been here for a while. I wanted to live without electricity. I wanted to live in a place where I could garden and grow things and have trees around me, and just have quiet and a different level of peace and rhythm and connection. I had homesteading dreams, and I think at that point there was chickens and ducks and geese. I think I was falling in love at that point. And that's like when I started to, I was playing shows, I'd play music out here and there a little bit.
Okay.
So it was definitely writing songs and doing stuff at that point. Yeah. Learning about herbal medicine.
Okay, so 5 years ago, you're in the place you are in now. You might be falling in love. You are living off the grid. You're learning how to make herbal medicine. You're growing things. And you're starting to play a little bit more, maybe live. Are you a night owl?
Repeat that.
Are you? By the way, I got to give us both credit. We've been at it for over 40 minutes. We have this crazy lag right now that I think would have stopped most people, but we're doing a great job with the delay. I think But I asked was, are you a night owl? Do you create at night? Do you work at night?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I'm such a night owl. Yeah. I work at night. Yeah, which is really annoying. Sleep is like annoys me. I don't really like sleeping or eating. I like doing everything else, but there's not enough time in the day to do all the things that I love to do. So because I like to garden and be outside for those things, then yeah, the creativity happens at night.
Okay, well, that's interesting. For me, it happens in the morning.
Mm.
Do you still ferment your own sauerkraut?
I do. Yes,
Oh, you do? Okay.
I do. Did I
Do you
give
even
you
have,
some?
we do our research here at Scott's Boring Podcast. So you mentioned playing live a little bit. You don't have an album yet, not a traditional one. You just recently discovered the name, came upon the name that I'm sure is going to stick because it feels great. Gray the Deer, and you have a handful of songs that you recorded in different ways. An album is coming for sure. But playing live, how does that work? I think the question answer to this question is maybe obvious. Maybe it's because it's you with an acoustic guitar. But maybe I'm wrong. How do you see this playing out live in your wildest dreams or in reality, whatever? How does this happen live?
Like,
How does Gray the Deer? What are your aspirations for live performance?
well, yeah, like, would I like to play live and how would that look like? Would I like,
I assume you do want to play live, and I am curious how that might look.
if the opportunity arose to play with other people, that would be cool. I sometimes when I'm recording or like doing my thing, I'm like, man, if there could just be some like drums here or some of this there. But also pretty like slow and minimal, which not everyone wants to play. I think I live in like a really rural area with most of the people I hang out with, they're like metalheads, and not really into like folky music.
Right.
So yeah, I think it would at this point right now, it would just be me and the guitar and
So if I can
reverb.
unpacking what I think you just said is that in your dreams you would lead a band that's doing a minimalistic indie folk thing that is your songs.
Yes.
But more realistically in the near future, probably you with a guitar, which is very powerful. I've seen it myself.
Yes.
So you'll be fine. I mean, I'd love to do something with you, but funny enough, I've been around folk music my whole life. My parents, every once a night, played at our house. Their band practice was at my place. It was basically folk music. I've been around it my whole life, but I have nothing to offer folk music. It's not because I'm a metalhead. It's just, it's just not how I'm wired.
Yeah.
But funny enough, so like if you did come back to the studio, it's either recording you live and just trying to capture you the best and most honest way possible. Like when you were here, you're like, let's do another take. And I'm like, nope, just the first one. And that's what we got because I thought that was the best thing. So that would be one option, is just recording you live with your guitar, which would be great. Other than that, me doing some like thing over that would be brute. It'd be awful. It'd be a shame because I would take away from it. But what I think would be interesting if we ever did anything together would be just creating something completely new. That's neither what I do or what you do, but something that is a little bit of an art project. I would love to do it with you. Like, you ever heard of Chelsea Wolf?
Oh, I love Chelsea Wolf so much. Yeah, totally.
So like you have this like you become very adult and mature in your songwriting. But like I know that you also come from like a punk rock, really like you're not afraid to pull a few punches. So it's like that'd be cool. Like if you did what you did over like a fuzz, like a spaced out, like a sparse fuzz guitar riff. But if you did kind of a chant, like, you know, did what you do over
That
that.
sounds awesome. That sounds so
Yeah.
good.
I could see like that
Yeah.
happening pretty cool. Like, yeah. Yeah, as you get older, you realize like my whole life, I love listening to somebody who does like folk type of approach. But I know that like my role in that is to listen. Like sometimes your role in music is to do nothing. It's just to support it and listen to it and appreciate it. So I have no business in folk music, but a fuzzed out guitar rock, alternative rock type of project, I think would be badass. That'd be fun to do with you.
I think that would be sweet.
Okay, so that's good. So that leads me into my next thing is like, we talked about your playing live goals. What are your recording goals? Like, I have to assume that you want a proper album. You have a name for it, Gray the Wolf. You have a couple songs that are amazing to go on it. So you and your guitar, an album, you could do it at home. You have the equipment, obviously, because it sounds great what you're doing. When can we expect a Gray the Wolf album? When is that happening?
Gray the Deer.
That's it. Oh, because we said Chelsea Wolf. I'm sorry.
I know, totally. And I was like, but that would be kind of cool. You could do like Gray the Deer and the album could be Gray the Wolf or something.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
You have to forgive me. I can be slow sometimes.
We did just talk
Gray
about
the
Chelsea
Deer.
Wolf. And Gray the Deer is kind of a weird name. It's like there is Gray Deer though, but it's kind of weird because you don't hear Gray the Deer. What does that mean? Donald Gray the Deer. I'm assuming he was he was maybe like a little bit grumpy or something, or like melancholy. But I would love to record an album. I've been wanting to record something for like years and years and years and years and years. I'm taking time. I've had the stuff, set up. I've recorded a few songs and then my computers died and they disappear. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry. No, yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. And yeah, for the future, I would love to record. I would like to record myself at home, but I feel like I would love to have someone be like, this is how you record so that you can then give it to someone else and do some of the more mastering stuff.
That's the best approach, Christy. Do it yourself and then have somebody master it and clean it up. That's the way to go in 2021 for sure.
So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone to be like, yeah, I'll do that. And then
there's a million people like that. I mean, I would do it for you. You could probably find someone better than me, but yeah, because you could record it on your own time in your own home. And then somebody else just to clean it up and just to do some some maintenance on it.
Take out the times I like.
How many songs do you think will be on the album?
Oh, I have so many songs. It's so crazy that are just like in the oblivion. I don't know. It could be an 8 to 10 song album.
So full lengther. Yeah.
A full length.
What is the cover going to look like?
I don't know. I was thinking about that recently. And I don't know if I would do like a photograph or drawings or I don't know.
It should be you.
It'd probably take me a year. It should be me. Really?
Yep. Absolutely. Yes.
With a mask on. Mask on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. But yeah, it's very un-Canadian thing to do in a way. But actually, if you're a solo artist, I think it's the best thing to do.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, as a solo artist, think about any solo artist since forever. Look at their album, and that's a picture of them.
It's true. It's got to
So
be a good picture, though. Like something kind of
yeah,
Joni Mitchell. Like, it's got to be like maybe faded and like got to have some good
well, you
coloring to
definitely
it.
have a Joni Mitchell vibe for sure, which is a great vibe. So we're gonna wrap up this podcast. I'm gonna ask you a couple questions, and thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun, and I really love your music, and that's why I asked you to do this. Is I just want to recognize it, and just to, and maybe there'll be, so that way we're going to put it out there, and there'll be other people in the world can listen to you talk about it a little bit and hear your songs, and it's just a way to show you off a little bit, and let you know that what you're doing is really significant and you're doing a great job. So a couple questions before we wrap it up. Do you have, now that you are, do you want to work with youth? Do you want to work with younger people, and how is that something that is of interest to you? And if it is, how would you do that, and what would you say to them?
Well, yes, I want to work with youth because I'm in teachers college right now. So I so I'm in school full time right now to become a teacher, an art teacher. So I will be working with youth. I think like to start out with, it'll be pretty part-time. And working with youth though, with creative, like in the creative field, is I think really exciting, because I think just, planting those seeds, encouraging creativity, getting kids to like realize their creativity and that's accessible to them, even if they maybe don't want to like pursue creative fields, that's an outlet for people, I think is like really healing and just so important for like general wellness and like being well in the world, to like know that you can make art in whatever form that you want to.
If you can give your younger self some words of wisdom, what would that be?
You kind of cut out.
If you can give yourself, well, we went through kind of the story of your life really quickly here. We went from 2015, you were 31, to 2010 when you were 26. 2004, you were 20 years old. And then whenever you're 16 years old in 1994. How about when you're 16 in 1994 and you were in high school? If you can just say some words of advice to to yourself, that younger version of yourself, what would it be?
Oh gosh, that's like such a big. I feel like I'm still trying to tell myself the same things. I guess. Yeah, I feel like I'm probably I feel like I'm still trying to tell myself the same thing, or it would still be relevant, but probably would be. Oh, that's such a good question. Don't take anything for granted. I think don't take things for granted. Don't give up, and don't let anybody get in your way or dampen what's there.
Christy, Gray the Deer, thank you very much for being on my boring podcast. Every time I'm always the most boring guy when you're around. You always make things full of energy, and I appreciate you being here, and I'd like to do it again.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for believing in me. I really appreciate it.
Okay. So that was my conversation with Christy. Gray the deer. What an interesting character, right? A true blue artist. And I'm glad that she's working on her debut album. I know it's going to be a special one. And I'll let you know, listeners of this podcast, when it comes out. Gray the deer. So if you listen to this entire thing, if you're listening to my voice right now, you really have to subscribe. I mean, if we've gone this far in our podcast listener relationship, you just listen to an hour podcast, for crying out loud. You got to subscribe, man. Or follow. Whatever it is. You got to click a button somewhere. Because if you don't, I disappear in internet land. And this is it. This is goodbye. And neither of us want that. I mean, obviously, there's something happening here if you're still listening to me. Are you still there? Oh my God. You're really hanging in right to the end of this podcast. I think you're obsessed. Did you subscribe yet? Do it.